I love you, but be for real. Nobody's gonna save you, girl. Not your man, not your mom, not God. Nobody is gonna save you. Before y'all get y'all panties in a bunch, let me introduce. Because I know y'all think I just be yapping, but I got somebody who's qualified with the degrees and all that. Jalen Taylor, she's a mental health professional, a spiritual healer, a multidisciplinary artist. I had to look up multidisciplinary because I was like, what do you say when someone does multiple types of art?
Yeah, no, that's real.
Multidisciplinary artist, nonprofit director. I'm just running my mouth, but she knows the real deal with her multiple degrees, certifications, including pastoral counseling and spiritual direction. Before we rain on everybody's parade, nobody's going to save you.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what made you pursue a career in mental health.
Yeah.
And how did you think to apply it to spiritual direction? I know some people are raised to be like, oh, why would you need a therapist? You have Jesus. So how did you marry the two?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes from a long line in history of mental awareness in my family. But what really kind of sparked it was when I was around 22, I had just started my nonprofit job. I was doing work in communities for Black children and families. And the issue that I was having is that it didn't matter how many resources I provided to people. If they weren't spiritually and physically yoked, they were never going to move past the barriers that they had set for themselves, let alone the institutional and systemic barriers that were happening. And I was in the process of doing a Bible study and finding my relationship with God myself led by my preschool teacher at this time, that I realized that I also wanted to give people the opportunity to find a balance psychologically and spiritually to move forward in their lives. So that's kind of where that came from. And just by chance, I had met somebody who introduced me to the program that I had went to, and it was really just divine, honestly. But it sparked out of wanting to really give people a leg up and being able to have ownership over their own lives and their own stories.
So basically, it's you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it.
Yeah. And I think that goes to the theme of today, that nobody is coming to save you, in the sense of how can we equip people with the tools to do that?
Okay. So you once shared with me that just because you are booked and busy, doing the most, always got an appointment, always got this, that, doesn't mean that you aren't looking for someone else to save you, or in professional terms, you may be in functional freeze. Can you paint a picture of what functional freeze looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think within mental health, we always think of depression as inactiveness or immobility to do stuff. But oftentimes there is the opposite, which is functional freeze, where people are actively committing themselves to different types of things. So they are getting up and cleaning and moving around, but they're not making space and time for what is actually motivating them or what is actually hurting them or keeping them in this same cycle. And so oftentimes we will put our energies into other things to distract us from dealing with maybe some trauma or transitions or cycles that we are currently in.
So basically, these things are distractions for our mind to feel we've made progress. But in reality, we're also just as depressed as the person who
is not doing anything,
who may stink, can't get out of bed, don't brush their teeth. Just because I brushed my teeth and washed my ass this morning, it don't mean that I'm not depressed.
Yeah, or that I'm not going through something that needs to be dealt with either psychologically or spiritually.
And then something that I've also noticed with people who may be in a functional freeze is they often do things to check boxes to appear a certain way to other people, to get that external validation of no, nothing's wrong. I see you every day. You get up, you go to work, you have this degree, nothing's wrong because I see you check these boxes. And it's like those type of people, it's like they're running nowhere fast. They're like running to check off all these like unlimited boxes that they create without really like going within and like finding like the reason as to why they're trying to check these boxes. So because so many people are in this somebody save me mindset and might not know it, because I feel like I probably struck a couple chords by saying like you may be doing so much and you're still actually anxious or depressed or looking for someone to save you. And it's like, but I spend 12 hours a day doing this, this, and this, and this. So it's like, that might hurt somebody's feelings. How does someone like enter into this somebody save me mindset? Or like, what are the categories of waiting for someone to save you as you see them?
Yeah, I think because of where we are with the increase of social media and all of the things that we're digesting and the standards that we are creating for ourselves, that we often create these checklists of this degree will save me from poverty, or this job will give me purpose, or this congregation will give me community. And while those things can be valid, I think oftentimes we rely so much on the next goal or the next accomplishment or the next thing to give us the energy. And it's like, okay, once you've gotten that, you haven't really met the actual need. And so then you're going to continue to chase things, or you're not going to feel fulfilled, or you're going to be let down when something happens. So say, for instance, you get the degree and you've graduated, but what's next? And then you feel like something is wrong with you, or that you don't have purpose. And I think sometimes we get lost in that goal or those things, and it doesn't help us. And so then we're like, oh, this is going to save me, or this person is going to save me, or this idea is going to save me. And at the end, it's like, what are you even being saved from? Where are you even going to? Are you being saved from your past? Are you being saved from the ridicule that people have given you? Are you being saved from poverty or the institutional and systemic things that are against you? I think when you don't know the root of the issue that you're trying to move out of, or it's very generalized, then you get into that mentality of like, this is going to save me, or someone is going to save me from where I'm at. Not realizing that you are saving yourself.
And then I think the point of, if you don't identify the root cause, you're going to keep running nowhere fast. In order to know yourself, you have to pause.
Yeah.
Life is filled with like beginnings, middles, endings, pause. And people forget about that last pause piece. So I can go to school. We go to school for however many years until through high school. And then if you choose to go to college. And then it's like, we just start work. We're supposed to actually know where we're working. I was someone who knew where I was going to work full time my sophomore year. Like, had my internships, interned twice, and worked there full time once I graduated. It was all laid out. But where was the pause to be like, oh, I went to school aligned with XYZ value at the time that I started it when I was 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
Pause. How can I use this time to see what did I like about school? What did I learn about myself? And what do I really want to do moving forward? We never have that pause. So we just keep running on this hamster wheel.
Until we get too tired and
we get too tired and we crash, i.e. burnout. That burnout is so prevalent right now. It's like, and then I think with women, especially women of color, it's like we were so hyper independent and we did 1, 2, and 3, and then we burned out and we're burning out, and now we're getting all these diagnoses, whether it be like nervous system stuff or fibroids, endometriosis, or
high blood pressure,
anxiety, all the things. And it's like, well, we never took that time to pause. We were so busy. We were so obsessed with checking the boxes. And this isn't just Black women, but being so obsessed with like checking the boxes that you forget why you were even checking them in the first place. And you never took the time to pause. And And we don't, at least like in the US, we don't allow time to pause. Even in the structure, like I said, it was set up for me to be like, I'm going to go to school. I need to know what job I'm having before I graduate. And then I need to go and do the job.
Yeah.
It's not set up for me to even supposed to be able to take a pause.
Yeah.
If I did after college take a year to decide what I want to do, it would be looked down upon. Like, oh, you spent all that money to go to school. You spent all that time reading books 1, 2, and 3, and you're just taking a year and you're not making money. I would have faced like ridicule, but it's like in relying on like the opinion of society or whoever it is, your parents, friends, classmates, you lose out on those opportunities to evaluate yourself and like figure out why you're doing everything in the first place.
But I think we have to really define what pause means, because there are different types of pauses. There are people who can pause from their job or from, you know, their hobbies, or pause in a relationship. But I think we also have to acknowledge the fact that not everybody has the privilege to be able to pause in a way that they can step back from certain things that are helping them to survive. But I think a pause can also be a reflection. Like, if I am continuously having headaches, how am I overthinking? What spiritually, physically, and mentally needs to be met for me to reflect on why this is coming on? If I'm having issues with, you know, certain types of relationships, can I pause to reflect on what this cycle is that I'm continuing to perpetuate? Do I have the community and the support to be able to reflect back to me the ways in which I need to grow? And if I don't, how can I advocate for myself to find those places, to create those places of reflection? And I think that's where the growth begins, especially in a time like this where like everybody's nervous systems are jacked and we're all trying to find that equilibrium. Can I take a break to withdraw from all of the stuff that is happening and process what I need and what is going on with me before I start asking, you know, other people's opinions or reflecting on the chaos or the energy that's happening around me?
And something that you said about the privilege, I think is huge, because a lot of times people think you have to do some big dramatic thing to take a pause. And I think in my experience, my pauses have been dramatic because I didn't know how or like have the tools to do the mini pauses along the way. So then when it got to a point of, oh, I like I have multiple chronic conditions. Like I had to just take a big pause, like not a mini one, because I didn't have the tools, know how to take the small pauses. So I think that's the point that a lot of people get to, is like they're ignoring the signs, ignoring the headaches, ignoring the relationship patterns or whatever. And then it's like they get forced to take a huge pause. They may get divorced. They may, like any type of thing, like they get forced into looking at the picture because they didn't take those small moments. But I think it's so important, of like the definition that you gave of pausing doesn't need to mean like you are stopping everything. It means like taking those little moments and like adjusting as you can.
And giving yourself permission to do that.
Exactly. Because I did think about like when I was quitting my job, one of the people there said, because she told me like when she was younger, she was like 58 now, but she said when she was around my age, like she had a chronic condition and the doctors told her like, stress, like your job is like causing you stress and it is making your chronic condition worse. And she told her doctor like, well, I can't just quit my job. I don't have the privilege. At the time she was like, I'm unmarried. I don't even have a boyfriend.
I don't have the support system.
Like maybe I could live with one of my parents, but I can't just not be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're right. Like, it is such a privilege that I can even, because the conversation was me telling her, yeah, I'm quitting because I have a chronic condition. And I like, it's too stressful. And she was like, yeah, I couldn't do that when I was your age. Like, I did not have the privilege to be able to just not do the job that I went to school for and like spent all this money on.
Yeah, but I think what is also beautiful in that conversation is even though she was not able to do it at the same age that you are, you gave her the reflective ability to do it at the age that she is now. And to see and give herself permission for the possibility of being able to take that break and step away from something that even to this day might be causing, you know, issues within her life or pauses and causes for reflection. And so I think time is not linear. So regardless of when it happens, it's supposed to happen. And I think you also gave them the ability to reflect on that as well.
Yeah. It definitely was like a powerful moment because I didn't even think about it. And it wasn't from someone who like I would have even thought could relate. And I was like, wow, like in the world, we all kind of do fall into certain categories of things that happen to us and like how stress like impacts us. It's different, but it's the same.
Yeah. I always tell people, and this is what I used to tell like clients, is that our themes are the same. So for instance, we might both have the theme of abandonment. It's just how we got to that abandonment that is different and makes us unique. So I can relate to you and that we are the same, but I can have my individuality and how I arrive there and how I will move forward from there. And I think that's something that we have to stay true to when we want to both honor our individual healing journeys, but then also with coming together in a collective way as well.
I think that's so powerful. I feel like people are going to have some healing. Just like listening. I'm healing just going through this right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the people who don't stop. They're on a hamster wheel. They're asking for the opinions of others, looking on social media, seeing what the next person has, chasing after that.
Yeah.
And then you talked about another category of the people who just leave everything to God, whoever their God is, to the point where they get stuck. So tell me what that persona looks like.
I think the biggest thing that comes up in my spiritual journey and studies, and something that was always repeated to me throughout my lifetime, is like faith without works is dead. And I think oftentimes we either get stuck in we have so much faith, but we don't put in the work, or we put in so much work and we don't have the faith. And I have been stuck in both of those categories. But I think oftentimes we have people who are like, if I work, it'll all pan out. But like, you don't have the faith that it's going to pan out. And so you're doing more than what God would want you to do. And you're tiring yourself out so that if you do get the things, you don't even have enough energy to enjoy the fruits of your labor. And then you have other people who believe so much that something is going to happen. They're manifesting this level of abundance, but they're not putting in the work to receive it. Like, I cannot pay you for work that you're not doing. And I feel like that also goes spiritually, is I cannot give you the abundance that I want you to have if you're not doing the work. And somebody who is sat in both of those categories, I get it. Because there were times I was like, God, why don't you love me? Why aren't you blessing me? I've prayed, I've fasted, I have. And so I think oftentimes we have to meet both faith with our work. I cannot solely rely on God in the spirit and not do my part. And that's why we are in a cycle of creation. So that's what I think about that.
And the piece that you said of like, I can't pay you for work that you're not doing. I don't know, I listen to a lot of stuff, I realize stuff, but there was someone that said, why would I, as God, give you more money, for example, if you don't even know how to take care of the penny that I gave you? Like, if you just throw pennies on the ground and you're like, it's a penny, I don't care about that. Why would I have you find $1 on the ground the next day? If you just throwing pennies that you find and like, oh, F that penny. I don't care about that penny. You have to take care of what he's giving you first. And you have to use the resources that he's giving you first. He, she, they, however you identify with a higher power of the universe. This is just how I identify. But like, whatever he's giving you, you need to use it.
Yeah.
Use it before you say, well, why? I prayed, I this. But it's like, you prayed. It's like that fable or whatever where it's like the guy was like out at sea.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was like, please save me, Lord. And a boat comes. It's like, I'm waiting on God. And then another boat comes and I'm waiting on God. And another boat comes and I'm waiting on God. Raft.
It's like different forms of it. And he's like, well, I'm waiting on God. God's going to save me. And it's like, well, God done saved you about 3 to 4 or 5 times
literally
now.
And not understanding that was the saving grace.
Weren't looking or accepting the saving grace because you were just like looking for God to physically pick you up and place you on the land. And it's like, no, God saves you by sending you resources, signs, whatever it is. He sends you things for you to use.
Yeah.
And it goes into like the conversation of free will as well. Because I think people like only think about free will in the sense of like sinning, of like, oh, like if you want to sin, like God is going to let you make that bad choice if you want. But no, free will is also like, I have to will myself.
No, that is so real. To get up and do this, I have to will myself to still be faithful in a time where I feel like nothing is happening.
Yes. And he gave you the free will to not do what you should be doing. He's not going to get up and move your body parts to sow the seed into the ground because you have free will. He doesn't move your body. Yeah. But he gave you the seed and there's some dirt in the backyard.
Yeah. It's really just about answering the call. Cause I challenge people all the time because people who read the Bible or who study, different types of religious or spiritual text, we always focus on the person. So we're like David or Abraham or Buddha, all these people who answered the call and we're like, they are special. They are chosen. They are all these things. But I'm like, how many people were called who didn't answer the call before this person did? We only know about the people who answered the call because they allowed the spirit, the universe, God to move through them. And I think we have to focus on answering the call rather than differentiating ourselves and our purpose from somebody who we think is doing better or who God is moving through at that time, when that can very well be us if we would just take that pause, like you were talking about earlier, and reflect on why it is that I am moving and being placed in the places that I am within my life.
Exactly. And I think I have family members that are Jehovah's Witness, and some of them lean on it so heavily. And it's easy to do that when it's a cult.
She said we gonna call a spade a spade.
Right. Like, it's easy to do that when it's called because you're supposed to do that, but it's like I see there. It was like a situation where one of my family members was like, "Oh, I don't have to worry about like what's gonna happen if we lose the house because God is gonna handle it. Jehovah is gonna take care of me." Okay, yes, God's gonna, Jehovah, whatever, is gonna take care of you, but
what are you gonna do?
What are the action steps? There were no action steps. There was no, and I'm going to do this. I'm gonna call the housing authority, or I'm gonna look into Section 8 or whatever. There was no and. Yeah. It was just, I'm not worried about that because Jehovah.
Yeah. But I think that goes back to the functional freeze, because even though we know that there are functions that our body is capable of to try to help us get out of situations, sometimes we freeze because of the anxiety that we feel that it won't actually follow through. Yes. Which then goes back to the point of having no faith. I'm putting in the work to pray and to fast and to do these things, but I don't have the faith that it's actually going to come to fruition for something that is tangible in this situation. And I think it can be frustrating. I'm not one to be like, I do it all the time. I'm so blessed because I have faith that works, because there have been some faithless times, or when I have tried to, in my functional freeze at times in depression, try to over prepare or try to understand, where I would assume the worst in every situation and try to find how it can go bad at every point of the situation, instead of having the faith that it could actually work out.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I would try to work harder to try to make sure that those bad things wouldn't come to fruition, when it was only my will that was making it happen. And I didn't need to do all that.
Something that I don't struggle with this one. This is not one of my themes, but I heard on like a podcast and I was like, wow, people struggle with that, is the fear of something actually working out.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? So people, like you said, they either just pray and say, oh yeah, like I have faith it's going to work out, and do nothing, or they do all these extra things to make it so much harder than what it actually is.
Yeah.
Overwork. Oh, I have to read these 10 books before I'm qualified to do this one thing that I want to do. They don't, but they've told themselves I have to do this before I'm qualified. And it's because they're really running away from that fear that, like, shit, I might actually could do this.
Yeah, but it's a coping mechanism, because when your system for the longest has become or is irregulated, that is your normal. So regulation is foreign to you. I had a client where regulation was foreign to them, and they had been through a lot of traumatic experiences. And so once they were in a healthy experience, they would do things that hurt themselves because they didn't feel like they deserved to be regulated or to be safe. And so they had to create a little bit of chaos to make them feel better about their circumstances, because they mentally could not understand how they had been through so much messed up stuff their entire life, and it was this easy for it to be safe or for it to be solid. And like, how can these two worlds be true? And how can I coexist within this safe place and get regulated? And it can be hard.
I struggle with that one because it's so hard to be like, I really did have to struggle.
Yeah.
To get to where I am. Like, I wasn't just trying to make things harder when I struggled at those points in time. It was just going to be that hard. Point blank, period. There's no way around it. I don't care how much I reflect. It was going to be that hard.
Yeah.
But then now that I'm at a place in my life where it's like more easeful, I'm like, but do I deserve this easefulness? Do I deserve even like a partner that's going to take care of me? That just because I exist, like, do I deserve that?
No, that's so real. I got into a healthy relationship, but like every time I'd be like, I just square up just a little bit, because I'm like, this is going too well. Like, the ball is going to drop. I need to prepare myself for something. And then it doesn't happen. I'm like, oh, this is what being healthy means. I don't have to fix everything. I don't have to keep showing up a certain way or doing things. I don't
like
have to work for, yes, I don't have to prove that I deserve your love. It's just given to me. What do you mean? It's just an instinct, but it's something that I've had to re-regulate within myself to be comfortable with that. But I tell people all the time that we have to give ourselves permission. But in order to give ourselves permission to live, we must first give ourselves permission to die. And that is dying to our old habits. That is dying to the old mentalities or the old voices that told us that we didn't deserve things or that we couldn't have these things. Because if you don't allow those things to die off of you, then you will continue to perpetuate those cycles. And it's not to not honor the things that got you to where you are, but it's to say that this got me as far as it's going to get me, and it's time for it to go. And I can't do this anymore, or I will not be able to move to where I'm supposed to move, because I will forever be stuck here.
That's a word, because I have done something called compassionate inquiry, and it's like they honor the different parts of you and you look at those parts with compassion. And it could be like, okay, I have a certain situation that like you could talk about something that happened this week. I cursed somebody out when I was driving or something. And in the sessions, like they go deeper into like, okay, when was the first time that you felt like this? And it could be like, well, when I was 10, because nobody was listening to me because I was saying you need to get out the way, and then my cat got hit. Like it could, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
there's a root.
There's a root to why that happened now in today me, and you learn to have compassion for that. That is what needed to happen at that time, right? Like, because people weren't listening to you in your household when you were 10.
Yeah.
So you had to be loud.
Yeah.
You had to always speak up. You had to be on edge and be ready for the next thing. But right now, India is not in that situation, whatever that situation was, and you are safe, and you can have compassion for like why that shows up for you now, even though it's not useful anymore, because it's like, damn, that happened to you when you were 10. Like, that's sad. And it was useful at that time, but it's not useful anymore.
Yeah.
So you can let that part
go
with compassion. You don't have to hate that part. And sometimes that part might peek back out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because we're doing this session don't mean it's going forever.
Yeah.
But next time it peeks back out, you can say, hey, I know before it was healthy for me to always look for the worst case scenario and plan around it and do all this extra work, i.e. the functional freeze. That was actually helpful at some point to me in my survival. But it's like not helpful for me right now. So what can I do to simplify whatever I'm doing right now? Or in the case of like faith without work, like, okay, I've prayed and I know that God has given me a lot of things because of my faith, but what is right in front of me that he's already given me that I can act on and utilize? Like, I'm grateful for the faithful half of me that's like so reliant on God, but at the same time, now I'm in a space where he's given me enough and I need to act on some of the things that he's given me.
Yeah. And I think that's great. I think one thing I want to highlight and something that you said when it came to the compassion is you were like, there was a reason that this happened. And personally for me, I've always heard the phrase of like, everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. But I don't necessarily believe in that. I believe that some things just happen, unfortunately, and we have to make a purpose out of that. Because who am I to tell you that you had to go through this certain trauma or you had to go through that experience in order to become the person that you have become? I don't necessarily think that that's true, because there's a difference between ignorance and innocence. And I think oftentimes we confuse the two. Ignorance for me is like when you willfully do not learn to do better. Innocence is like when you don't know to do better, or when you haven't experienced something that maybe you don't necessarily have to experience, which keeps a level of innocence to your mentality. And I think this world corrupts people's innocence, because if I went through something traumatic, I want you to also feel that energy. And so then we try to make purposes and reasons out of traumatizing or hurting people or exposing them to things that they shouldn't necessarily be exposed to. And then I, because of my healing journey, have to make a purpose out of healing that when it shouldn't have happened in the first place. I do feel like there's a certain level of compassion that still needs to happen in your healing journey, but I do think that there's a level of awareness that we need to have to preserve the innocence of people so that they do not have to go through the things that are not necessary, or that they do not have to go through traumatizing things in order to receive their blessing or in order to receive, understanding. Because imagine how much freer and how much further we would be if we didn't experience all the stupid shit we did in our lives that was unnecessary.
Yeah, I think that's another thing too, because I think about like people recently, I don't know why, because I think it's stupid, but they were like invalidating Issa Rae, like saying like, yeah, because you didn't have like the struggle of a Black person. She like funded some sort of like Black project that was reflecting like Black struggle, and they were like, well, why did you do that? Because you don't know nothing about that or whatever. And it's like, why should the Black experience automatically mean struggle? It like,
or why should I have to go through something to see that somebody else is going through something and help them out? And so I got to be homeless to give a homeless person $5?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So that reminds me of that. It's like, no, Black people shouldn't have had to go through what they went through, but we made a purpose
out of it.
Well, I guess like African Americans, when I think of, I'm thinking about slavery and shit. Like, is what I'm thinking of. Like, we shouldn't have had to go through that, but we had to make a purpose. We had to make our collard greens and sweet potato yams and stuff
and
because
chitlins.
That was the scraps that we were given from our owners. So it's like, but that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah,
but it did, and we made a purpose.
Because now I have a choice on whether or not I want to make that. And I think that's where the liberation comes from, in creating a purpose out of the things that you've gone through. But I would never tell somebody that they need to enter back into those things just to understand what it was like.
Just to understand what it was like. And I don't think that you have to relate to it, to the experience, to be of that culture or to appreciate any type of culture. So yeah, I definitely like resonate with that. And I think like the theming of exiting out of patterns that aren't useful for you anymore, like the functional freeze, is finding that balance between having a strong faith, belief in the universe, whatever it is, and putting in work, but not overcompensating with the work. And that is a tricky dance.
It really is.
To do. How do you... My first question is, for the people who are like, have you ever had clients that are so into their faith, may even be a little bit defensive about it, and you're trying to get them to have more balance? Like, how do you recommend people come back into a true equilibrium with that?
I think honestly, I have had clients and people that I've interacted who are on the opposite spectrum, in which they believe so much in the world that they don't have spiritual faith, where they're like, I'm so reliant. For instance, I had somebody who I worked with who was so reliant on food stamps that when they were blessed with a job that would give them enough money to sustain their life and have enough grocery money to be double what they were getting in food stamps, they were so afraid of losing this supplement that they decided not to take the job. So they didn't have faith in themselves enough to go after what we had worked so hard to get them to. And that is the issue that I sometimes see, is that we become so reliant on the supplement or the things that we know that we don't have the faith to move into where we are being called to. And that can be an issue. And then, you know, sometimes I don't personally go to church as regularly as I would like to, just because I feel like oftentimes we surrender so much at the altar that we don't work through what we actually need to work through. Like, I remember going through a very tough time spiritually and bringing and casting my cares to the altar and feeling my whole body just release and being dismissed by people at the church because it wasn't released in the way that they saw fit. And being picked up off of the floor when I needed prayer, when I needed hug, and handed some tissues and left to my own devices. I felt like I was literally picked up with everything that I tried to leave at the altar and forced to take it with me. Like, it wasn't a place for me to cast my cares away. It was a place for me to just be in the space and give to whatever their mission was. Yes. So I think sometimes I have dealt with people on both spectrums where they either have so much faith that they are unwilling to change and do things, or they have no faith at all and they are still unwilling to change and do things. So you have to find a balance in your rituals and your practices that honor both being an embodied spirit and being in this world.
What are some of the like practices that you do that helps you honor both the work and the faith and like self-reflection?
Mm-hmm. I think in my prayers, I have found the practice of not asking for things. Like when I pray, I'm not like, I want a better car, or I want a bigger house, or I want a job with more money. It's more so like, I want the knowledge to know how to move in this world, or how to negotiate, or I want the wisdom on what is for me and what isn't for me. I ask for the veil to be lifted off of my face so I can see things as they are and not as I would want them to be. And so more so asking for the knowledge and the wisdom on how to move in this world to be successful, rather than asking for the success directly, has been helpful. And just being open and honest with who I am, and how, even if that may go against what I was taught and what I was told. Because if we were divinely and perfectly made in the image of God, or in conjunction with creation, we have to embrace that and what that comes for our story, and not compare it to this model of what we are supposed to be. And so I think releasing a lot of those conditions has been helpful, even though I am still in the work of doing that, and being more confident in myself.
I just thought back to something that you said on having the faith in yourself, and how you worked with someone who didn't have faith in themselves and didn't want to go off the food stamps. Related, unrelated, I feel like some of the supports that we have, even though it's marketed by politicians as like, it doesn't matter what side of the spectrum, it's marketed as, oh, it's helping poor Black people. And no, it's taking away our faith in ourselves to strive for something better than these supports. Do you feel that way? I
do feel that way.
I'm not against them though. I'm not against having these resources. Let me make that clear.
If you need them, use them. Absolutely. That is what they are there for.
There is no shame in using them. Like, I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, you should just get a job. Like, no, I don't.
No,
that's not where I'm going with that.
No, but I understand what you're saying, in the sense where, does it come to a point where it is the end all be all, and that you cannot strive further? And I do think that's the case. I do feel like there are certain conditions and limitations that have been imposed to keep people from actually getting what they need. Because say, for instance, I get a better job that overqualifies me to be able to get this supplement, and now I have to choose like between this or that, instead of having the ability to roll it over until I feel confident to handle what is on my plate now on my own. And then I also think that the supplements, and this is not even just about like government supplements, but like the supplements that we give people with the quick fixes on the videos that I see on TikTok, like just diagnosing ourselves with certain things and letting that be the end all be all, and making up our minds so quickly, instead of investigating what this really means for me, and how am I supposed to grow and learn from this, or even just be still in it. I think that's something that we often don't do, something that I had to learn how to do. And that goes back to what you were saying, where it was like, sometimes you get to a point where you have no other choice but to sit the heck down. And I think it really just depends on what it is that you're utilizing. Is it trapping you in a cycle that you don't want to be in? Because there's some people who are perfectly fine where they're at, and by all means, Buki, be comfortable.
But if you are comfortable,
then do what you got to do. But I feel like there are a lot of people who feel a certain level of unrest, and I want you to investigate that and move beyond what people tell you you're capable of.
And that, like, I don't know why I thought about that, but I'm like, I think like we don't do the investigation, and we're like, okay, like this is what I've been accustomed to. This is what I'm used to. And I think it's by design. I don't think they want people to think bigger, better of themselves.
Yeah.
Or like truly have the faith that they can transition. And then to your point, also, they don't set it up in a way to where you can wean yourself off or like gradually build yourself away from it. It's like you either qualify or you don't qualify. So yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. Back to like the tools that you use, I really liked how you said your prayers aren't give me this job. It's give me the knowledge I need to get a job that is in alignment with what I'm supposed to do right now. Because people, and I think it's healthy. First of all, I think it's healthy to get mad at God.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's so healthy to be like, did you do this?
Oh, I do that all the time. We have a relationship where we talk very candidly. Okay.
Like, I think it's healthy, but at the same time, it's like, well, I'm going to always be mad if I'm asking for something based on what I think it should look like. And I'm like trying to check these external boxes, over compensating, overworking. And I'm like, well, God, why am I not happy? Why am I not this? Why am I not that? Well, I didn't ask him for what happiness feels like or the knowledge to be happy or the healing to let go of whatever past. I asked him to give me this job.
Yeah, or this very specific thing that like if it's not met, it makes or breaks your faith. And I think that's where we get messed up is I'm like, I want to be happy in this relationship. I want this relationship to manifest into a marriage, and you were never supposed to be with that person long term. Like, or I want to be successful in this job, and maybe you will be, but at the same time, how are you measuring success so that you can actually know that this is what success is? And I think that is why in my prayers, I more so ask for the wisdom and the courage and to more so, because if we are made in the image of God, I want to embed that energy in everything that I do. And I think, in Black church, they always talked about like, God will give you the desires of your heart. But like, if you really read the context of it, it is really the desires of the relationship that you create with the universe, that you create with God. Those are the desires that you get, because the closer I am to God, the more we are aligned with what my purpose is. And then I'm like, oh, this is what you wanted for me. Now that is a desire that I have for my life. And then we make it happen.
Yes.
And I think oftentimes because of what we see, we create desires based off of all these external stimuli, when in reality, that is just supposed to be a motivator to know that we can do it. Like if I see what you're doing, that's supposed to motivate me to know that there's something beyond what I'm doing right now. I'm not supposed to replicate it and do your podcast and call it by the same name. I'm supposed to be like, oh, shoot, like
I could do this or a variation of it.
Yeah. Or I can do something that I'm passionate about and actually make it come true. Whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
So I think we keep trying to replicate stuff, and social media doesn't help it, because I'll see people say the same exact thing 10 different times because that one video went viral, and now we're all using the same language for visibility. So it's very interesting. It's very copy and paste type of world.
And life is not supposed to be copy and paste. Like to your point, we all have the same themes, different variations, but like themes overlap, but you still have to do the work to find like, okay, this is how I got to this theme. This is what I'm gonna do about it, or this is how I'm gonna use it. To like fuel me.
And if you don't want to do anything about it, cool, but do not make it the responsibility or the burden of other people for your misery. Like own your shit. Whether you do something about it or you don't, it's yours.
Own it. And I think the thing with like functional freeze is what happens is for the people who fall in the category of overworking, you'll become sick at some point. I don't know what kind of sick it will be, but some sort of sick. If you don't address it at all. And then that falls on your family.
Yeah.
Or your close ones.
Or your lack thereof, family and close
or your
ones.
lack thereof. And then the people on the faith end, it's like, okay, so if I'm a member of a church, a congregation, it's like, well, now we're all praying for Sally Sue because Sally Sue in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Sally Sue got high blood pressure, diabetes. She in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why is Sally Sue in the hospital? We've been praying for her for weeks. She's been in there for weeks. We've been praying. Because Sally Sue ain't changed her diet.
Mm-hmm. And not even just that. Like I had, saw a situation where a woman believed so much in her faith and like natural remedies that she didn't take care of her health when she was having a sickness. And it got to the point where they could no longer help her because there was nothing that they could do. She was like, I'm just going to fast and pray. And now she's malnourished with liver disease and she won't take any type of interventions until it was too late.
Okay, I'm glad you spoke to that because people find something that they think is easy for them to implement and they implement it and ignore all the other signs because that might not be right for them. So they're like, oh, this natural thing. Mind you, I'm a holistic gal.
Yeah.
I have supplements and herbs. And we was talking about oil of oregano. I do the stuff.
Yeah.
However, people take the thing that's the easiest for them to follow and are like, if I just do this part.
Or they get stuck on one way of doing something.
Like if I do like this right here, I'm on this one way, then it's going to work out because it worked out for this person that I saw on social media or my pastor or my mom knew this person that
But is that not the same idea as colonization? Like because this worked for this group and it benefited them, then they brought
that over here.
That's the method.
And then we're all supposed to do that.
And that don't work for everybody.
And it does not work for everybody. It's the same exact thing. And it's like with the natural healing stuff, I always would be so confused because I would be like, how are you, the sea moss motherfuckers?
Yeah.
They be some of them be unhealthy, like health problems.
Yeah.
Like blood pressure, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but you selling this 102 mineral thing and
but you're not even getting to the root of why you even have that ailment or what you're trying to treat.
That you have.
Yeah. But we treat the symptoms and not the disease. And I don't even think that's just with health stuff. I think that's within our life it's like, okay, if I just treat this one thing, then that will make me better. But I'm like, but do you even know what you're treating and why you're treating it?
And if you even like any of the things that you are like, that you someone may fixate on, like if you fixate on the faith, it's like, okay, mind, body, soul. Mind, body, soul. You can't, they all connect.
Are interconnected.
So I gotta care for all of them. If you fixate on the natural stuff, like, oh, I need to make sure that I get like this stuff, herbal stuff. Okay, so what does your refrigerator look like? Do you have fruits and vegetables and...
Are you balanced?
Like, you fixated on the herb part in nature, but where's the nature in your refrigerator? Like, that, like... Or if you fixate on, like, okay, I gotta work. I gotta get things done, check things off my box. It's like, well... What work did you put into all the areas of your life?
Yeah.
Like, work should be well-rounded, not one-dimensional. It's like, any way you put it, it's like you're ignoring
something else
that is directly a part of the doctrine that you're trying to follow.
Yeah.
You're ignoring part of your own doctrine by not like actually looking at the whole full picture.
And I do think focusing on, because you do have to have a certain level of focus in order to implement something new into your life. Like if I want to change my diet, then I have to be very conscious of what I am trying to change until it becomes second nature and it's just embedded in my routine. But I think sometimes we get too fixated on something being the end all be all or the savior of some aspect of our life, that we don't look at how it is impacting us holistically. Like, for instance, when I was going through my spiritual journey, I was so focused on my spiritual journey that anything outside of that I rebuked. And there were things that I didn't even need to do because like that was not part of the plan. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I am trying to not have a Jezebel spirit, and I'm trying to do the things and all that stuff that I was like judging all of these people. And then mentally it's bogging me down because I'm so focused on, well, what is right? What is wrong? What is godly? What is not? And that's not the purpose of me. Like, I am not the judge nor the jury. I am just Jalen. And then I was mentally declining because I was so focused on trying to get it right that I was doing it, building my relationship wrong. And then I physically started to feel it. And so I started to neglect it, my body and the things that were going on. Cause I was like, I just need to fast and pray. I just need to fast. And I'm like, you're not getting no nutrients. Like, how are you really growing?
And you personally needed those nutrients.
Yeah.
And like the thing about fasting, it's like fasting is effective
for a purpose.
But it's like, just because it's effective for a purpose doesn't mean it's holistically the end all.
No. Especially if it is used out of turn, or if it is used too much. Too much anything will kill you. And I think that's something that we have to really pay attention to. And I think everything that we've said goes back to the theme of like, no one is coming to save you, not in the sense that people will not be along your journey or will offer you wisdom or resources, but in the sense of like, you have to utilize all the things that are being given to you to liberate and free yourself and to move yourself forward, because you're not going to do it on your own, but you still have to do it. Like our paths have crossed for a certain purpose, but that's not to say that after this conversation, we won't have our own individual things to process and work on, or that have come up, or that will plant seeds now for us to think about later. But if I just ignore this moment and just say, oh, it was just for this one conversation and that's it, then everything that was leading up to this point dies at that moment. And so you may not be here to save me, but you're here to reflect upon where I'm supposed to be going.
But it's up to you.
And I can't solely rely on us having these conversations all the time to reflect on what's happening in my life. I have to do that in other shapes and forms and give myself opportunities to do that.
I feel like that was a good summary of everything that we talked about. Like, yes.
Yeah.
And like we said, nobody gonna save you.
Nobody is going to save you.
Nobody gonna save you.
But they will aid in helping you move forward.
If you let them. If you let them. Because people have people that show up for a reason.
Yeah.
And they turn them away.
Yep. Because like, if I'm going to be honest, I was not feeling it today. Like, I have been feeling a lot of anxiety with what's going on and trying to prepare and adjusting to a new job and, you know, all the things that I was going to be like, can we reschedule? But then I was like, but why? Like, there's a reason why this is happening on this day, at this time, at this moment. And I can't even imagine, now that we've had this conversation, canceling. Because now I feel a little bit better, because I'm like, oh shoot, you have all the tools that you need to like get out of what you were feeling this weekend. And I feel like this was a blessing in its own way for me to reflect back on like, oh yeah, you do know what you're doing. You do have purpose. You do have a story. You do have the knowledge. And so I thank you for that opportunity.
Oh, stop. You gonna make me emotional.
And I'm thankful that I followed through on allowing you to do that for me and for me to do that for you.
Yes, it's allowing people, because that's how I was saying, like, sometimes people show up and you turn them away, you close the door. God sends you people to aid you, and sometimes you send them away. You do it to your own self. You gotta save yourself. You gotta open that door sometimes and be like, I look a mess. I
don't feel good. I don't want to do this.
But it's an aid of something. And I'm going to feel better after. Now, sometimes some people you need to close that door on. It's the devil.
Absolutely. Goodbye.
It's the devil.
You're rebuking in the name of Jesus.
Door. Close that door. But you know in your heart when you just being a little resistant.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that you allowing me to have this conversation with you. Like, it's so crazy how, like, when you go to, like, tell someone else something about their life, like, I'm trying to do in this, so, like, let the girls know ain't nobody gonna save them, or let the boys, the niggas know, then we go and save ourselves. by trying to tell other people to save themselves, we save ourselves. So I thank you for that. You can follow the podcast, subscribe, like ILY Butt Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, and ILY Butt BFFR on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Let us know what you think, and definitely send us a message on Instagram or TikTok if you have any questions for our professional. I will send them her way. But thank you so much for listening, and go save yourself.
Go save yourself.
It was so cute.
That was.
I love it.